Hello everybody, I'm Stephanie. Today we're going to be looking at some of the most common used props in yoga. So join me on your mat wherever you're at and let's get started. When it comes to using props, a lot of times people have this notion that to use props is a sign of weakness, when really these are such amazing tools to help your yoga practice to really take it to a different level. Part of yoga is not to find that perfect posture or those perfect pictures. It's all that messiness in between and really becoming aware of not only the way that your body feels, but the way that your body is made. So beginning to notice, are you made with long arms? Are you made with short arms? Do you have a long torso? Do you have a shorter torso? Do you have very open hips that turn out? Do you have hips that are a little bit more tight? So just becoming aware of all these things in your body and using the different props in ways to make different poses more accessible to you. So instead of thinking, oh, I've got to use a prop here, man, I'm so weak, I'm so bad, saying, oh my gosh, okay, now I can do this pose because I've given, for example, if I use a block, my arm a little bit more length, or I've given myself a little bit more support, so I can bring more awareness to what muscles need to be engaged, what muscles need to be relaxed, depending on certain poses. So we're going to take a look at some of the most common used props in yoga, and one of the first ones that you're going to see the most use is yoga blocks, and there's tons of different kinds. There's tons of different widths, there's tons of different types. You can have them out of foam, I've seen them out of cork, even out of wood. So it just depends what you're going to use them for. I like to use ones that are a little bit thicker because I like that little extra bit of length in the arm, and I like the cushioning of the foam blocks. So especially if you're using these not just to lengthen your arm, but to give some more support to the wrists, to the palms, I like this little firm kind of give that foam has. And I'll show you a couple ways that you can use this, but one of the reasons I really like the foam is it not only gives a good support, but it gives that cushioning, but also it kind of gives a little imprint. So those of us that have maybe sweatier feet or hands, you can really see this as you're placing the palms down, or you can even do this with a foot and putting the foot on top of it. You can see what the imprint is and what the connection is, and then becoming aware, oh, I'm rocking to the inside or the outside of the foot, or oh, I'm not bringing quite enough engagement to that corner of the palm. And then that can really change the way that you're practicing yoga. You might notice, oh, I don't have quite as much pain in my wrists or my hands because I realize I got to kind of bring a little bit more to the inside or wherever that is. Also, this is great for people that have wrist pain or palm pain because of some kind of genetics or some kind of issue, because it gives that extra bit of cushioning and you don't have to be so hard and intense on the palm. So a couple ways you can use these. First way is maybe in down dog. So placing the palms on the blocks and then lifting into down dog. That lengthens the arms so the hands aren't having to go all the way down to the mat. But also I've got a real good cushion here. And so as I press my heart back towards my thighs, I've got more cushion underneath my palms than I would if I was just doing it traditionally on the mat. And then when I come up, I can see, oh, good connection. What do I need to work on? All that kind of stuff. So I love this to use in a down dog posture. Another way you can use this, as I said before, is to lengthen the arms. And so most blocks, we're going to have 3 different levels. And so you've got the lowest level, medium, and then high. And I'm going to show you 2 versions here of you can do. The first one being coming into triangle pose. So I'm going to move this block to the inside of my foot. And what this does is it brings the floor up closer to you. A lot of times we have this in our head that the posture has to look a certain way. So traditionally, if the block was not there and we say, okay, coming into triangle pose, I've got this image in my head that, oh, I've got to get my palm all the way down to the mat. And in order for that to happen, if my hip is really tight here, or it's just not feeling too hot, or then maybe that's just the way it is, I've got to turn the shoulder down, and then I've unstacked the shoulders to get the palm down. So this just kind of takes some of that out of the equation. Now that's as far as I've got to go. So once I come down, then I am still lined up, shoulder on top of shoulder. This just takes away that even temptation of pressing and going past the edge for your body, because even if, for example, if I'm teaching and I'm giving the cue, if the shoulder rolls down, maybe come up and go a little bit higher, we've just got this stigma in our heads that it's got to look a certain way. So if we take it out of the equation that I can't even reach the floor because the block is there, then I can really pay attention to opening up the shoulder, opening up the hips, and feeling a little bit more openness instead of my goal having to reach all the way down. You can also use this for support. I love this one for half moon. So I can bring my palm down to the block as I'm lifting my leg, and then really beginning to balance here. Again, just like in triangle, I can stack up, really work on stacking up, but I also have this support here, because a lot of times for half moon, people will just reach the palm down and it's not quite as much engagement because you got that, just the foot is the only thing you're balancing on. So if I'm working on half moon, now I've got the foot and the palm engaged down, and I can really work on opening up the hip, work on opening up the shoulder, and then find that alignment that I'm looking for. So just changing your mentality and thinking this may be the way that posture looks for you, and that is not a bad thing. So yoga blocks, I love using those. One last thing that you can do with blocks, and this is one that I love to use, is when you're coming into a seated pigeon posture. This is a pose that you either love or you hate for one of two reasons. Either you have open hips or your hips are a little bit tight. But the goal of pigeon is to release, to let go. And you can't really do that unless the hips are square. So if you notice in your body that you're always rocking to one side and one hip is higher than the other, you can kind of see my left hip is higher than my right. And the goal is really to get the hips straight. And so you may be like, I just do not like this posture. What you can do is bring some height to this back hip here and bring it up to meet the left hip. So placing a block underneath the hip, underneath the glute of the leg that is bent. So bringing some height up, and then all of a sudden my posture is nice and square. I can really start to settle in and start to relax and let go and feel that lengthening. And also this takes out some of the edge or the length that you have to go to, because without the block, this stretch on the left leg is a little bit more intense back. This one on the right leg is a little bit more intense to the side. So when I sit in a block, it lessens the intensity. It keeps the integrity of the posture. It gives the same benefits, but it protects me from having to go way too far. So really using a block if you need to for your seated pigeon. Next thing you can use is a strap, and there's a couple of different kinds of straps here. I've got two here. This is your most traditional one that kind of looks like a belt, and you can strap it into itself and make a circle, or you can keep it nice and long. Or one that I really like is called a Shiva strap, and it's just a circle altogether. And these are designed for different body types. So when you're looking at these, they're going to be as wide as your shoulders are, so that when you put your arms through the straps, you're lined up. So I've already got, when I press side to side with my strap, my wrists underneath my shoulders. So I love using this one for arm strengthening kind of things, to really find that engagement in the arms. So maybe if I'm coming into a plank or a chaturanga, or even if I'm coming more traditionally into a crow pose, then I've got that extra little bit of engagement, pressing the arms into the strap, where when I don't have that strap and I'm coming into some of these arm balancing, arm strengthening poses, I have a tendency to kind of collapse down a little bit more. And this way, with the strap, I'm finding that engagement and really keeping the arms nice and engaged as I'm pressing the hands out. So I love this version of a strap. It's called the Shiva strap. You can also use the strap, again, as another way to lengthen the arms. I love using this one for a reclining hamstring stretch. And what you would do is you would take either the Shiva strap and put it underneath the arch, or you can take your more traditional strap and place it underneath the sole of the foot here. And this lengthens the arm. So just stretching the hamstring. A lot of times what happens is when the foot reaches up towards the ceiling and then the teacher will cue, okay, reaching up for the leg, where are most people going to reach? They want to go all the way to the toe. And so they're reaching up, and this is crunching, and the back is crunching, and the neck is crunching, and I can't even bring awareness to stretching out the hamstring here because I'm crunching all of this. All of a sudden, I have super long arms, and then I can keep my neck down, my back down, my shoulders down, and begin to really bring that awareness to the hamstrings there as I'm stretching in my reclining hand to foot here. This is in a standing posture, and I love this for standing posture, especially when it's looped. So I'll use my Shiva strap for this one, is again placing it underneath the sole of the foot, coming into a standing hand to foot. And I love this because this helps you to keep nice and tall without the strap. If this is a new posture for you and you're having to reach for that foot and make that balance, a lot of times people will curve the spine and not stay nice and tall and lifted. So this again lengthens the arms so you can bring that awareness to height in the spine and then really work on finding that engagement because you feel the foot pressing into the strap. You feel the pull of the strap into the foot, and that's that same awareness that eventually maybe you bring to when you get the hands to the foot. But if you don't, that's okay. So getting rid of that idea that, oh, I'm going to get rid of these someday. It may just be in your practice to use these. There's certain postures I always use props for because that's just the way my body is built. And then there's other postures that some days I use them and some days I don't. So it just depends on where you're at. So those are some ways you can use a strap. One other way you can do it, again, is another arm lengthener. Anytime you're taking a bind, and this is great for whenever you're coming into gamakasana arms, and I'll turn around so you can see this here. A lot of times, when we're setting up for gamakasana arms, if you have very short arms and you're reaching the palms together, you're going to overstretch a little bit. It's going to take it past the point where it needs to go in your body. So if you use a strap, you've automatically lengthened the arms, and then you can begin to just walk the palms closer together. But you've lengthened the arms with the strap there. And I love this one. I have a friend that she has shorter arms. That's just the way she's made. And every time we come into this posture, she always uses a strap. She's a teacher. She's been teaching for years and years and years. She has an amazing practice, but she knows her body well enough to know it without the strap. She has a tendency to overreach and really tweak things in her body. So these are wonderful things to use. Another thing that you can use is the bolster. I love this because it brings a little bit more awareness to the way that we're not only relaxing, but it brings the floor up to meet you a little bit. We use pillows a lot of time when we sleep. We might sleep with a pillow underneath the knees, or when we're side laying, and then we come to our mat-based practice, and then we don't use them anymore. And it doesn't make any sense because it's the same shapes. And so we want to make those same accommodations for our bodies. So one great way that you can do this is if you're coming into a Shavasana pose, you can place it underneath the knees. So for anybody that is dealing with low back pain and they're coming to yoga to seek that help, that yoga helps in the low back, if you say, okay, set up for corpse pose, and then the arms and the legs are extended, this is not a comfortable position a lot of times. They are wanting to keep the knees bent, but then you're almost having to support a little bit. So this brings that support underneath the knees, and then they can fully relax and just let their weight melt down and really find the benefits of Shavasana. But now they're nice and supported because it's taken some of that pressure off the low back. It can also bring the mat up closer to you, so bring the ground up closer to you. So placing it behind your back, one way that you can do this is if you're coming into hero pose. So you can do this with both legs bent, or you can do this with a single leg hero, just a half hero. But instead of having to go all the way back and really tweaking the knees or overstretching the thighs, this is as far as I've got to go. So when I come down to here, then I can really just relax. And you might be thinking, oh, well, I can just come to forearms, and that's fine too. But when you're coming to forearms, you still kind of have this closing off. Everything kind of dumps down because you're trying to relax. This is not an engagement posture. This is a posture that you're trying to relax in and release and let go some of those muscles. And so without engaging a little bit and keeping the heart open, then everything kind of dumps down. When you bring a bolster into your practice, it does that for you. But you can stay nice and open and then find that relaxing posture. This is one I use quite often. I love this one because unless my body is very, very warm, it is not common for me to get all the way down to my back. I'm in that kind of space right in between, and then I have to either engage to keep the heart open or everything kind of drops in. So I love using a bolster. One last thing that you can use is a good old blanket. You can also use a very thin pillow. Any kind of seated posture. This is great to bring some awareness into the way that you're sitting. Because a lot of times when we sit, we kind of close off and everything rounds, and then the hip flexors get short, and then everything crunches in. So when you bring a thin pillow or a blanket, you want to sit on the very edge so that you're half on and half off that blanket or that pillow. And it kind of tips the pelvis just a little bit to give and lifts things up to give you some height. So you sit a little bit taller and everything is reaching forward and opening up instead of this closing off that we do a lot of times when we're sitting down. So I hope you've enjoyed some of those ways that you can use props in your practice. Maybe start to change the way that you look at them. Really look at the way that they can help and improve your practice and bring some more awareness into your body. Thank you so much for joining me today. Blessings and namaste.